Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers disturbing the peace, medical care for arrestees, and excessive force, and is brought to us by Mass Lives channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Exter. Being organized can have a dramatically beneficial effect on your life, but getting organized is a challenge that we all face. It helps to start with something small, like is a small card that you can fit into any wallet or card holder. Her 11-year-old child following a custodial from the city of Worcester Police Department in Massachusetts were called the Cornerstone Bible Baptist.
I know where this is, and this is that's where my pizza came from. Wait, I know exactly where this is too. Oh no, this is going to be saucy.
Officers from the city of Worcester Police Department in Massachusetts were called to Cornerstone Bible Baptist Church to speak with Rachel Rizzuti, the daughter of the church's Reverend Joseph Rizzuti Sr., who allegedly failed to return her 11-year-old child following a custodial visit.
What?
According to the Rizzutis, when Ms. Rizzuti asked the officers if they had any paperwork or if she was being detained, Officer Nunez responded in the negative, so Ms. Rizzuti attempted to leave. Additional officers arrived, including Officer Capabianca, and the interaction that followed was captured by body camera footage.
Who are you? Who are you? Why don't you go inside? You have nothing about it.
Oh, that's my daughter. So okay. Yeah, I do have a lot to do with it. Yeah. Okay, so
you don't this has nothing to do with you. You done yelling? You done yelling?
Are you done yelling? Acting like a big shot?
We're all set here. You can go inside.
No, you go on.
You're not going to tell me what to do. You can go inside. You're about to be arrested for disturbing the peace.
Here, tyrant. Let's get him. Look at him. Look at this guy. Look at him.
Hey!
What are you doing?
Hey! What are you doing? Oh, you're in trouble!
Fuck this cop. Straight up, fuck this cop.
After Reverend Rizzuti calls the officers quote-unquote tyrants, an officer threatens to charge him with quote-unquote disturbing the peace. And when Reverend Rizzuti does not comply with his order to go back inside, the officer chases him into the church, throws him to the ground, and tases him. Now, we will discuss the use of force later in the episode, but first, it is important to explore whether the officers had any grounds to arrest or detain Reverend Rizzuti. The Massachusetts so-called disturbing the peace statute, which is found in section 53 of chapter 272 of the Massachusetts general laws, simply states that, quote, disorderly persons and disturbers of the peace shall, for a first offense, be punished by a fine of not more than $150. As the Massachusetts jury instructions explain, a conviction requires an individual to engage in conduct that most people would find to be unreasonably disruptive, such as making loud and disturbing noise, tumultuous or offensive conduct, hurling objects in a populated area, or threatening, quarreling, fighting, or challenging others to fight. The prohibited conduct also includes, quote, uttering personal insults that amount to fighting words, that is, are so offensive that they are inherently likely to provoke an immediate violent reaction. According to the jury instructions, in order to sustain a conviction for disturbing the peace, the government must not only prove that an individual engaged in prohibited conduct, but that the actions were intentional, not done by accident or mistake, and the individual's conduct actually annoyed or disturbed at least one person. However, due to the protections given to speech by the First Amendment, the instructions also clarify that the disturbing the peace statute does not apply to offensive and abusive language unless it constitutes, now quoting, profane, libelous, and insulting or fighting words which by their very utterance tend to incite an immediate breach of the peace. Additionally, as we have discussed before here on ATA, the 1987 Supreme Court case of City of Houston versus Hill established that the First Amendment protects a significant amount of verbal criticism and challenge directed at police officers, unless it is, now quoting, likely to produce a clear and present danger of a serious substantive evil that rises rises far above public inconvenience, annoyance, or unrest. In reaching this conclusion, the court quoted Justice Powell's concurring opinion in the 1974 case of Lewis versus City of New Orleans, which suggested that even the so-called fighting words exception to the First Amendment might require a narrower application in cases involving a police officer because, now quoting, a properly trained officer may reasonably be expected to exercise a higher degree of restraint than the average citizen, and thus be less likely to respond belligerently to fighting words. Therefore, it is highly unlikely that a court would conclude that Reverend Rizzuto's statements, as captured on the body camera footage, exceeded First Amendment protections.
Dude,
Although it
this is
possible that he
crazy.
engaged in additional conduct or speech before the footage began that did constitute disturbing the peace.
You guys need to get back up. Get out of that space. Back up.
Just record it. That's all.
Oh, you tased me. Get the state cops here. Oh, you just punched so hard. I'm gonna sit. Sit down. Are you on?
I'm okay. Stop, Papa. We need
We're in the church at 70. What's wrong with you people? These guys are tyrants. What's wrong with you? On the ground now.
Let go of me. What's wrong with you? He's a tyrant. I'm resisting you. Stop him, you idiot. You're psycho. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. You're psycho.
Stop moving.
You're hurting me. Listen, buddy. Let go of me. I'm gonna sue the out of you so you know. This guy's been hitting me, kicking me. Yeah, I'm gonna sue the crap out of him. You're hurting me, man. I just asked you to get off my wrist, man.
You
Get this guy's name right here, Capa Bianca. Yeah. Everybody, get this stuff. All because they're trying to bully one of our church members and steal their child. We'll just sue him, that's all. I don't know what I did to get
You didn't
tased.
do nothing. They sitting here punching me in
Yeah, he
the face.
came at me because he didn't
This
like it.
Spanish cop right here punched me right in the face.
I know that. Don't be punching us.
Shut your mouth.
You need to back away from us. We're not animals. What am I arrested for?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, what did I get arrested for?
Get the supervisor here now.
I can't even believe what these guys just did in this church house.
Yeah.
We need to get him up and then him. Which one do you want to get up first? Big bolt. We have enough guys now.
Yo, dude, the audio is pretty bad.
We've got enough guys now.
Joseph Rizzuti Jr., the son of Reverend Rizzuti and a pastor at the church, asks one of the officers to get his wife, Carissa Rizzuti, quote-unquote, checked out because she's pregnant and an officer tackled her. A lawsuit the Rizzutis filed after this encounter claims that an EMT who responded to the church location refused to provide medical care to Ms. Rizzuti, allegedly telling her that he was there to treat officers and that he would not examine her because she hit an officer. The complaint also alleges that Ms. Rizzuti was never given medical treatment and that after her arrest, she lay on the cell floor for hours without receiving any medical attention.
What the fuck am I listening to? This is some like 1980s cop shit.
In the 1983 case of Revere versus Massachusetts General Hospital, the Supreme Court held that the 14th Amendment requires the government to, quote, provide medical care to persons who have been injured while being apprehended by the police. The court also concluded that although the 8th Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishments applied only to convicted prisoners and not to pre-trial detainees, the due process rights of an individual in this situation, now quoting, are at least as great as the 8th Amendment protections available to a convicted prisoner. As the First Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over Massachusetts, explained in the 2016 case of Miranda Rivera versus Toledo Davila, quote, government officials violate the 8th Amendment if they display deliberate indifference to a prisoner's serious medical needs. A serious medical need is one that has been diagnosed by a physician as mandating treatment, or one that is so obvious that even a layperson would easily recognize the necessity for a doctor's attention. Similarly, as the First Circuit noted in the 2001 case of Kosha versus Town of Pembroke, so-called deliberate indifference may also consist consist of, now quoting, showing a conscious failure to provide medical services where they would be reasonably appropriate. Here, the officers were informed multiple times that Ms. Rizzuti was pregnant and that she was only at the 3-month mark, which would arguably be an obvious risk to a layperson and likely constitute a situation where medical services would be reasonably appropriate. Therefore, if the allegations in the lawsuit complaint are true, Ms. Rizzuti would have a legitimate argument that the state failed to provide her with medical care as required by the 14th Amendment.
Beaten up by the Worcester police. This guy right here.
You have an ID on you?
No, I don't. You got one on you?
I drive stun. He got drive stun in the back. Does he have to go? No. Just want to check him out. You know,
I'll wait
he's
for him
8
to
miles.
cool off for a minute.
Yeah.
My name's Joe, Reverend Joe Rizzuti. I don't consent you to go in my pocket. You don't care what I say.
You're under arrest. We're going to search
You
you.
get away from me.
Okay?
You get away from me.
No,
This
you're
guy
under
has
arrest.
assaulted.
All right.
I'm your arrest.
Yeah.
Oh, am I? You get away from me. You've already assaulted me. Assaulted me, tased me, laying in the back of my church. This guy. Imagine that. All
Dude,
because
this
he
is
was asked a
crazy.
Simple question. Tased me, you knocked me to the ground, and this guy's pulling my pants down. All because he was asked a simple question. Tased me, you knocked me to the ground, and this guy's pulling my pants down.
Reverend Rizzuti criticizes the officers for their use of force against him. The body camera footage shows that the officers chased Reverend Rizzuti through the church before throwing him to the ground and tasing him. The complaint filed by the Rizzutis also alleges that the officers struck Reverend and Pastor Rizzuti with closed fists, and that Carissa Rizzuti was thrown to the floor, where officers stepped on her stomach and back, although the body camera footage does not depict all of these actions. According to the Worcester Police Department's use of force policy, quote, "It is the policy of the Worcester Police Department that an officer's force response be objectively reasonable and account for the officer's perception of the risk/threat presented by a subject, as well as the officer's perception of the subject's actions." The policy also states that, now quoting again, "Officers shall not use physical force upon another unless de-escalation tactics have been attempted and failed or are not feasible based on the totality of the circumstances," and, drawing on principles established in the 1989 case of Graham versus Connor, that an officer may use that level of non-deadly force that is objectively reasonable to effect an arrest, protect the officer or another from physical harm, restrain or subdue a resistant subject, and or bring an unlawful situation safely and effectively under control. Now, in this situation, the officers did not state that the Rizzutis were under arrest, although they did appear to be attempting to arrest at least Reverend Rizzuti when the use of force began. And while Reverend Rizzuti was verbally
Dude, this is
challenging the
actually
officers,
insane.
there was no reason to believe that the Rizzutis posed a threat of physical harm to the officers or other individuals in the area, at least at the time the physical force was initiated. Likewise, the body camera footage does not show the Rizzutis resisting any lawful orders, and, assuming that the allegations in the complaint are true, the Rizzutis were not creating an unlawful situation, because Officer Nunez had already informed Rachel Rizzuti that he did not have any paperwork and she was not under arrest. Therefore, a court could find that the amount of force the officers used was both a violation of Worcester PD policy and constitutionally excessive, although it is difficult to give a conclusive opinion given the chaotic and incomplete nature of the body camera footage. Furthermore, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court held in the 1983 case of Commonwealth versus Modera that, although individuals do not have the general right to resist unlawful arrest under state law, quote, "Where the officer uses excessive or unnecessary force to subdue the arrestee, regardless of whether the arrest is lawful or unlawful, the arrestee may defend himself by employing such force as reasonably appears to be necessary." Now, in that situation, the court concluded that an arrestee may defend himself by employing the degree of force that reasonably appears to be necessary under the circumstances. As such, the Rizzutis would be able to argue that they were acting in self-defense against excessive force from the officers if they were to be charged with resisting.
No one's
They're going to
checked
check
me
him
out.
out. They're waiting for him to calm down.
Checked out.
They're waiting for him to calm down.
I like my money clip and my money back.
Take care of that.
Look at these guys. You guys getting this on video? Taking all my stuff out of my pockets, my money, my
bro.
money clip,
Hey,
everything.
your whole behavior, all on video. All your behavior.
That's how that works.
Don't worry about it. Okay? So shut your mouth.
Oh, really? Shut my mouth.
Did they prevent you from getting the kid?
Yo, that's crazy.
There was a lot. We were trying to get to there, and he kept interfering, and he wouldn't calm down. He caused the scene, and he ran.
Where'd you get, you know where you got tased?
I have no idea. He got tased right in the middle back here.
Can I just look at it? Is that all right?
Relax. I gotta check you out. Right here. right, we're good. All right, you also have to go to the wagon. Let's go.
This is like shocking, man.
This guy here.
Like shocking.
All right, let me find. I don't know.
Absolutely shocking, dude.
They did all this in front of him.
I'm good here. They just need a card for the other guy. All right, guys, we're good.
Mom,
Thank
they're
you.
gonna tell you you're going to the police station. You gotta bail us out. You got Joey's credit card. I'm getting arrested too.
Reverend Rizzuti was charged with assault and battery on a police officer, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and interference with a police investigation. And Pastor Rizzuti was charged with interference with a police investigation and resisting arrest. The resisting arrest charges against both men were dismissed prior to trial, and a judge acquitted them of all other charges after a bench trial.
Of course.
Rizzuti was charged with interference with a police investigation, which was also dismissed, and Rachel Rizzuti was charged with several offenses, including a kidnapping charge. The kidnapping charge was later dismissed, and the other charges against her were decriminalized. On August 23, 2022, the Rizzutis filed a federal lawsuit against officers Nunez and Capobianca, along with several other officers and Worcester government officials for unreasonable force, assault and battery, conspiracy, malicious prosecution, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and other federal claims. The complaint alleges
Damn!
that in addition to the physical injuries sustained during the altercation, Pastor Rizzuti's son, along with the other family members, were traumatized by this event. The complaint also includes allegations of a pattern of misconduct by the Worcester Police Department. As of the date of writing this episode, the lawsuit is still pending. On November 15, 2022, the DOJ announced it would be launching a civil investigation into the Worcester Police Department to assess whether the department engages in a pattern or practice of excessive force or engages in discriminatory policing based on race or sex. According to a press release issued by the DOJ, the investigation will include a comprehensive review of policies, procedures, trainings, investigatory files, and data, as well as an examination of the department's systems of accountability, including its systems to address misconduct complaints and discipline, and an evaluation of how WPD officers interact with the public, collect evidence, and complete investigations. Overall, the Worcester officers get an F for utterly failing to de-escalate a contentious
Absolute
situation, using
dog
excessive
shit
and
police,
unnecessary
dude.
force against the Rizzutis, and seemingly pursuing inflated criminal
That's
charges
so
against the family
insane
and
to
against
me.
Reverend Rizzuti in particular. Now, although I cannot speak to the validity of all of the allegations in the complaint for the Rizzutis lawsuit, it is
It's
clear even from
actually
the
fucking
limited portion
insane
of
to
the
me.
interaction that was captured on body camera that the officers used more force than was necessary to resolve a non-criminal situation. And as the Rizzutis were acquitted of all criminal charges, and the DOJ is currently investigating the Worcester Police Department for repeated instances of excessive force, I am inclined to believe that at least a good portion of the Rizzutis' claims are accurate. I truly hope that the DOJ investigation yields accurate and actionable results that can be transformed into meaningful change for this police department, including appropriate disciplinary action against transgressing officers, so that we do not see these same officers involved in another encounter like this one in the future. As for the Rizzutis, I cannot assign an accurate grade based on the body camera footage, as it did not capture the family's interactions with the officers when they first arrived on the scene, nor did it clearly record most of Pastor Rizzuti's and Ms. Rizzuti's actions. What I can say for certain is that the Rizzutis appeared to remain within their First Amendment rights in their criticism of the officers' conduct, and while Reverend Rizzuti would likely have been in a better position had he not run through the church in an attempt to escape the officers, I understand why he acted out of fear towards the officers' aggressiveness.
Yeah, I know
commend the
exactly. Can you imagine? You scream something at a cop like "suck my dick," and you get jumped by a police officer. Like, this is gonna maybe not sit well with everybody, but I'm of the general opinion that there is somewhat there is an argument to be made that depending on how law enforcement sort of like jump a suspect, right, plays a very real role into how that suspect, regardless of innocence or guilt, is going to react. And so that's not to say, like, you know, if you're going down the street, you're suspect, and then all of a sudden they start running when they see a cop, like that's justified. But humans are going to react when something comes out. It's very like normal. Yeah. Fight or flight ends up kicking in. Especially in a scenario like this where this guy is just like, yo, fuck you, tyrant. He knows like 99% of people are going to be like, oh, I'm allowed to do this. And then all of a sudden they see this like cop who's very clearly acting out of line, effectively jumping his ass. You're probably like, well, if he's doing this, what's he going to do next? Like that shit's going to race through your mind. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's, I don't know. That's crazy. That was crazy, chat. Holy fuck.